Muhami Matters with Chris Adams, powered by CJA Consulting.
The first thing I said when I woke up from coma, get out of my face, directly to that nurse. The superpower we have to be able to have now is we have to judge our creativity. We have to work on our creative assets.
Tell me a bit more about that. What kind of boundaries did you want to push?
For a neurodivergent person, there is no box. At the same time, we need a box to be able to perform.
Hello everybody, welcome to Muhami Matters, where credibility meets clarity in legal and professional services. I'm your host Chris Adams, founder of Muhami and CJA Consulting. Our guest today is a really interesting one, a really interesting guy. He rebuilt his life after losing 30% of his brain in just a split second. But today's story is not really one just of survival. It's an examination of how radical neurodivergence can become a business advantage. Bjorn Callius is a Swedish-born creative strategist, former photojournalist, and a neuro-inclusive design thinker. Try saying that one fast. Whose journey took him from the fast life of NYC over in the States to the brutal blank slate of brain trauma. What followed wasn't a comeback, it was a redesign. Bjorn, fantastic to have you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Christopher. It's a pleasure. I'm really excited about this. Let's see where we go.
Looking forward to it as well. So tell us a little bit about your origins. I believe you're from Sweden. Tell us a bit more about where you were born and bred.
Right. So I'm, as you can see here from my accent, I'm not like a proper UK guy or US or whatever. I'm born in Sweden, and currently I live in Sweden, where I've been based for like most of the last 23 years or something. Long time ago, I moved to New York, obsessed with photography and convinced I would have a great career and be successful doing shooting pictures in New York City, which I did. Things turned out amazing. I was working really hard and I developed techniques to power nap while standing on the L train out to Williamsburg, and I was working 24/7. And since I was living in New York, I was living 24/7 at the same time. So 200% life during 24 hours. It's kind of tough to handle, but I did it.
So Bjorn, you were having fun in New York. It sounded like it was amazing. Tell us, what year was this? When were you in New York City?
Well, this was way back. It's 26 years ago. Anyway, wow. This was 1998 and 97 and the years around that era, because the big change happened in May 1998, which happened to be my birthday as well.
Amazing. So this big event you're talking about, this was an injury. Tell us what happened.
Well, I mean, as life goes on, I had a life in New York. I had a girlfriend, and she was a studio manager for a big photo rental studio at Manhattan. We were going to a funeral wake because her mother had passed away. I was almost at the funeral chapel. I just had one last street to cross. Well, I wasn't looking for green, red signal because there was none, but there was at least a proper crosswalk. I did use the proper crosswalk, and this guy came speeding, and maybe I was a little bit unconcentrated because I was hit by the car and made some really fancy acrobatic tricks in the air and crashed like a pancake on the street. But I was really happy it was just around the corner from the funeral parlor, because at the place there were several nurses and several educated policemen that could take care of the situation, which they did. Unfortunately, my ex-girlfriend, as of right now, is happily married in Sweden with this Swedish wife of mine, and she did not visit her own mother's funeral because I interrupted everything by trying to make my gymnastics right outside the funeral parlor. And so anyway, I was brought to this hospital in New York City called King's Cross Hospital, where they take all trauma patients, like shot policemen and so on. I was transported to the hospital. I mean, after all, I did cross my skull, and after all, I did lose break like 10 bones or something like that.
My goodness.
And I was a mess. And most of all, since I lost 30% up in my brain, that was focus one when they tried to glue me back together. But they did a decent job. I still have some scars, and I still have glasses, and I have a pirate patch, and that's because I have constant double vision. That's something really cool to have. Just imagine you take pictures and you see twice over everything. That opened up a new universe for me. And my first photo show after the accident was actually me. I was doing this documentary story called My Sweden 1998, which was reality captured through a scatterbrain and with this Chinese plastic camera called Holga, which they took Hasselblad film. I mean, I'm talking real camera film,
Yeah.
analog film, and I can double exposure by pushing twice on the trigger, and that made me capture what was my reality. And the only way to make focus is to have focus in your hand, and I can choose between one person, three persons, or mountains, and that's it.
That's fantastic. So you can help other people see the world in a different way.
I've always been a storyteller, and camera's always been closest to my heart. And now I changed tool because I feel that the story I carry, camera isn't enough. I need words. I need other tools to communicate the story I'm carrying inside. That's why I switched into, well, painting and written storytelling, and I left the camera behind currently.
So you've very much been a storyteller all of your life. And how long were you in hospital for? When did you become conscious and wake up and start realizing, what had happened and that your life had changed a little?
I'm sorry for laughing, because I mean, have you ever been in coma?
No, not on purpose. Sorry, not accidentally.
It's
Only on purpose.
it's boring. It's really boring, and you can't really do much. You can't even think. You can't express your thoughts. Well, you can't do shit. You can't do anything because you're in coma. But the vegetable state that follows being in coma is really boring. So I really pushed everything I could to be able to continue life where I thought life should be. So I really pushed the limits really hard. I did spend a month or two in coma, but
Wow.
I'll tell you, the first thing I said when I woke up from coma was from this male nurse that did not treat me well at all. He was really being really nasty to me and treated me like garbage. So
Wow.
my first words were, "Get out of my face," directly to that nurse. And I think being sharp and being able to communicate in a really direct way, it's not a super skill I have, but it's an important skill. And I think to have that really focused, to be really focused on what you want to achieve in life and what you want to do is something really important.
So do you feel like you had this focus before the accident, and were you quite sharp and I guess straightforward, straight speaking before the accident, or was it this trauma changed everything?
I have always been really direct and sharp with what I want to achieve in my life. I'll give you an example. I decided I was 19 and moved by myself to Australia to go windsurfing. I never stood on a windsurfing board. Instead, I decided to, hell, I'm really interested in doing photography. Photography is a word I can never pronounce. I have to live with that. It doesn't work in my mouth because after the accident, I was lame in my half my body, and I had to go to the speech therapists to learn me how to pronounce and how to shape my mouth to make me understandable. Anyway, I moved to Australia at the age of 19, and I decided to become a photographer. I decided to start assisting this guy in South Melbourne. By that decision, by that meeting, by that position, my task in life was decided. My mission was obvious. I was going to be a photographer. So I moved back to Sweden and I started my own studio and slowly built a network, slowly built clientele to work with. And I was doing a lot of artist photography. And by accident, pretty much, I was working for this amusement magazine, and the editor in chief was also running the biggest hard rock magazine in Scandinavia. And one night we were sitting at the board meeting on the magazine and discussing, oh, how we're gonna shoot this story, how we're gonna approach this cover shoot and blah blah blah. And then he asked me, oh, by the way, I'm going to another place in Sweden tomorrow to meet this really famous hardcore art band in Sweden. They're just about to release their next album, and I need a cover shoot for them. I need a cover for them. Can you do it? That was actually my first shoot for a music magazine. And then I've been probably for different music magazines in Sweden, mainly in Sweden. I've probably been shooting like 20 covers or something and 40 plus inside stories for different magazines for different artists, mainly in the hardcore and hard rock segment. And anyway, after a while, I got bored of being in Sweden because I think there has to be something bigger out there. I'm not even from Stockholm originally in Sweden. I'm from a smaller city, big enough to host the biggest music magazine in Sweden back then, but still not Stockholm, which is the place where most things do happen when it comes to media, where I'm living now, or where I reside now. So this friend of me, oh, I'm gonna move to New York and be rich, famous, and rude. He kept saying that over and over again, and this thought came bubbling in my head. Maybe I should move there myself. Which okay, let's see, what contacts do I have? Do I need to know someone? Do I need to know someone to be able to just move to New York and be rich, famous, and rude at once? Uh, Probably it's a good idea to know someone. Oh, I know this friend of a friend that moved to New York to do. I think she's doing exotic dancing right now, but that's okay. She probably knows someone. Oh, cool! I could crash in her sofa for the last couple of nights. Okay, that's a good start. Oh, I know this guy in Stockholm that used to go to New York and LA quite often to do photo shoots. The guy he's working for is really famous. He'll probably have a lot of assistants. So I got in touch with this freelance assistant in LA. Notice this is not New York, this is Los Angeles. So I gave the guy a call. This was before internet. So I gave him a call and told him, hello, my name is Bjorn. I am from Sweden. I am about to move to New York to be rich and famous. And I wonder if you know anyone I could assist in New York. Oh, sure, sure. It's really good to speak to you and blah, blah, blah. I'll see what comes up. I'll keep you in mind and look around. And then I moved to New York, and I was really consistent. I knew exactly what I was looking for. So I started calling all the rental photo studios and all photo agents and all people I could think of. And I tried to network with artists and other assistants and so on. And nothing really worked out. With one guy, really famous New York photographer called Dalan Wei, was from China, called me up and said, Hello, I'm doing a big photo shoot to, well, he doesn't speak in Swedish accent, he speaks in Chinese accent, but English. I'm doing this really big photo shoot at Pier 59, which happens to be the biggest photo studio in New York. Tomorrow, would you like to be my third assistant?
Wow.
And so I went to Pier 59, which is a really amazing big space. There's 7 or 8 big photo studios, and in the same building there's a golf range. And it's an amazing place. And if you take your limo there, it arrives in the building, and you take the elevator up to the studio. This is the place where I've been assisting on photo shoots, like shooting Dolly Parton, shooting a lot of famous persons. And anyway, I've never been assisting before, so this was a new universe for me. My position was being a third assistant. My job was running around on ladder, positioning the headlight so you could get the right light as a rim behind your, because that was his personal style. And I was working really long hours, really intense. After the shoot, we took his limo or cab to this restaurant, and me and the whole photo crew went out and had dinner and a couple of beers and an amazing time. And this was the start of a new life for me.
Amazing. Yes.
I was really in the flow.
Fantastic.
I was still just assisting others, but hey, that was a good start.
So, Bjorn, what I'm hearing from you is that you had a fantastic time in New York and you really decided just to take the plunge. You know, you had doubts in your mind, you decided to take the plunge and just thought, I know I'm going to do this and make a success of it. And it sounds like you met some really interesting people that started to shape your career. Tell us a bit more about that.
I would say so, yeah. I'll tell you first of all, there's 25 hours a day, not 24 that some people are convinced of. So it's possible to squeeze a lot of activity into these few hours. And I did the maximum of it. Anyway, I was running around trying to meet a lot of interesting people. I ran to different rental studios, and I eventually got to catch at this photo rental studio on Manhattan on the west side. It was an amazing space on the ninth floor with a complete daylight facing north, and everything was perfect. And I got to work there as a freelance assistant, as a studio assistant over the summer, while the owner went to UK over the summer. And at the space, there was this one guy that was also working as a photo editor for a really cool magazine called Black Book Magazine in New York. And we got to speak a lot. And he thought, hey, this guy is really cool. And he can perform really amazing. I'm blown away by the way he speaks about life and what pictures he takes. I want to use him in the magazine. So he put me into my first real professional shoot in New York for the magazine. He put me in contact with this artist. He was a really vivid artist. He's doing pretty well these days. This in Nasa Borg. And he had sold in this idea about what happens if you spend 24 hours a day, 27 days a week, living in the New York subway system.
Huh.
You study how the communication changes if you live during a period when there is not too much 9 to 5 traveling going on, when there is a more relaxed kind of traveling. So we spent Christmas week 1997 living in the crisp New York subway system,
Oh,
studying mass communication from that sense. And that was a really interesting story. We got to meet really amazing people. We spent Christmas Eve, the American Christmas Eve, so to say, Christmas Day in
in
US.
Sweden, yes.
And we spent Christmas on the park bench in Lower East Side. And he told us the most amazing stories. This was right before gentrification happened, right when it happened, when the current mayor in New York, Giuliani, decided to clean the scum out of New York and move them out to the suburbs and just go out in the tunnels where all these people were living and just tell them to leave with the help of force. And he was there and he could tell us all the amazing stories. Those meetings were so amazing. And we even had this pretty famous, been shooting a lot for National Geographic. And she came down to us on a park bench and gave us vegan Christmas buffet on the park benches. And we could share a Christmas buffet on the park benches in the subway system. We set up a system so people could call us on a payphone on Grand Central Station at certain hours a day.
That's amazing. What an amazing thing to do. How different.
I mean, I've been having quite a trip.
Quite a trip. So you were obviously a photographer, an adventurer, very good at making friends and acquaintances, it sounds like. You had a big incident and you've been very, very busy since. Tell us a bit about what you do these days. Are you still doing photography? What's your passion?
To be honest, I'm always going to be a storyteller because that's what life is about. I mean, unless you can explain and tell others about the experiences you have, then you can't communicate. And communication is something really important. And without communications, there should be war in the world. And no one wants war, right?
No.
So if we learn how to communicate, it might help. Anyway, to answer the question, of course, I did crash my skull. I did come to Sweden as a mess. So I'll tell you the story like this. I fell in coma. I woke up at the hospital in New York. Of course, I didn't have an insurance, and I'm told that's a pretty good thing to have an insurance if you live in America. So after a while, I was transferred to medical care, which is not the best healthcare in the world. So I had to charter my own ambulance flight going to Sweden. I did so, and then an ambulance to a hospital in Sweden. This was, of course, when I was stable enough to be transported and not in coma anymore. And I was in a hospital, and the more aware I got of things, the more I wanted to push boundaries.
Tell me a bit more about that. What kind of boundaries did you want to push?
When first of all, I was lame, and people when the doctor when you have to walk around stumbling around and holding a rail on each side, and once now the left foot, now the right foot. I practiced all that shit, and then when I was able to on freehand move over 20 meters without support, I thought, oh, cool, I could walk. So when and they were like nurses trying to take care of me and trying to stop me from falling and stuff. So I had to pretty much walk out to the fire escape in the hospitals and practice how to walk down and upstairs in subdued lighting, if I needed to with the help of the rail. But I did manage, and that was pretty good training. I mean, unless you push boundaries, you'll never be as good as you want to. So I did push boundaries really hard. And there are a lot of boundaries to push. You have the physical boundaries like walk and do things to be able to. I mean, you have all the cognitive skills. You have to be able to like hold your balance. And since I've been older, been rock climbing a lot. I'm not rock climbing anymore now, unless with a rope and a little bit more controlled circumstances.
That determination that you have, you mentioned to me that you have some ADHD traits and that perhaps has always played a part in your life. How have you used that as a superpower, I guess? And how do you encourage others to use it as a superpower?
I decided to run a race running 20 kilometers in the mud right after a motocross race in Sweden under really damp conditions in November. And if you've ever been to Sweden in November, know it's freezing cold and it's muddy and wet everywhere. So I decided to run still with double vision and still with a really bad condition, bad coordination between left and right side and so on, to run this 20k in the mud. So okay, that was a decision I took, right? And if you take a decision, you have to fulfill that decision, right? And in order to do that, you have to train. So I started training 2 occasions a day, either building muscles or building cardio or building endurance, once or twice a day, 7 days a week. And of course, I got some. I don't know. When your heels gets inflamed. I don't know the English word.
Oh yeah, it's like heel spurs or something. Yeah, heel spurs
Yeah, heel
maybe.
spurs. Let's say. Anyway, I got heel spurs, and so I went to this physiotherapist, and I told him the situation. This is what you have to do. My leg hurts, and in 4 weeks from now, I have to run 20k, glue me back together so I can perform. So he did. I couldn't train 7 days a week anymore, but I could train with pain like 3-4 times a week. And I did finish the race. The only thing was that after 3 kilometers, I splined my leg.
Oh no,
I didn't break my leg, but I almost broke my leg.
that's almost worse.
That was painful,
Yes.
really painful. But you know what? I had decided to finish the race, so I did. And the time was not that bad as either. I did a pretty decent performance. It took me 1.5 years to heal. But hey, I did it. I did perform.
What inspired you to do that? It almost seems a bit of a risk, and you could have just said, "No, I can't be bothered. It's too risky. There's so many things that could go wrong." But you obviously are able to push yourself past this and look at the risks, assess them, and say, "No, I'm just going to do it." What drives you to do that, and how can you help other people with that?
That's two questions in one. Let's take the first one first.
Yeah.
How did I push myself to do all this, the crazy stuff I've been doing? For me, it's quite easy. I mean, it's really important to judge risks. I'm really good at risk judging. And if there's a 50% risk, that the chance that you will survive, then let's go for it.
A lot of our listeners are lawyers who don't like to take risk. They're very black and white. It's either, they really want to be convinced before they're very risk averse. I think a lot of our listeners.
In the creative business, you can't think like that. Especially now when everything changes, when we have AI supporting us and help us do all the practical bullshit. I think the superpower we have to be able to have now is we have to judge our creativity. We have to work on our creative assets. And that's what I'm really trying to do. I mean, whatever I can automate, I do. Since I have half a brain, now that's not quite true, but since I almost have half a brain, I'm not that fond of Excel and that kind of structure. I'm interested in having tools doing the structure for me, so I can focus on the creative possibilities. And I like to nerd in and focus on the details and really dive deep and create something amazing from that. But when you have ADHD, it's easy to get way too deep, and you realize that suddenly you do something you're not supposed to do, but you come really deep and you're exploring something that's way beyond what's actually needed to perform what your mission was from the beginning. So I use apps like Pomodoro and so on, pretty much an egg watch that tells me, hey, now it's gone 20 minutes, shift focus. Have you achieved what you wanted to achieve in 20 minutes? If not, move on, fine tune, and finish.
So you mentioned that you use your ADHD as a superpower. You've obviously, as you said, kind of flippantly have lost half your brain. Obviously, you haven't lost that much. But what practical tools and systems help you thrive day to day to get things done to be successful and, fulfill your determination?
It used to be called spell Google, Google, Google. I mean, Google is even a word like you search for information on net, but the net is an amazing asset which can help you to structure your life. I use apps like Trello, Google Doc, Google Cal, Google whatever, Google Search, and specialized AI. I have several different channels of AI specialized on neurodivergence, structure, how to optimize things, how to build structure is something really important for me. Imagine you wake up in the morning and you have all these 10,000 ideas in your head. Oh, I'm gonna do this, and that. Then it's really important to, next to your bed, you need pen and paper. Just write it down. Don't write full sentences. Just write words, short words. It could be abbreviations, it could be anything. Just write something down. Then go whatever you have to do to be able to sit in front of some device you could write on, and then start typing. Use your Trello board, use your Google Cal, use your plain document. Sometimes the best could be just to use AI and brain dump everything that's in your mind. In my case, it's 50% English, 50% Swedish, and like 20% German on top of that. And it's all like a complete dump. It's no full sentences. It's not commas where it's supposed to be. And it could be a sentence that starts with, "Oh, let's continue. Let's write that story about neurodivergence for the pod I'm supposed to be in, and I have to pick up the babies at the healthcare, and now I'm gonna say something in Swedish. Och så måste jag skriva den där rapporten om blah 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 and something else." I mean, you just brain dump anything that's in your head. It could be educational advice. Could be anything. Just brain dump.
I think that works for both people who have a creative lens, who think with a creative lens, but also those of us who think in very practical terms and just need to get it out. So I think that's really helpful. Do you think this works for teams as well?
Absolutely. I mean, brain dump is really helpful even for teams, but you still have to transfer that data from a complete brain dump that AI kind of put in structure. But hey, AI is not a human. It's just a dolphin on steroids. It that understands Excel and other fancy softwares. It can't solve climate crisis unless it tells you how to solve it. It cannot solve the problem unless you give it a hint of how to solve the problem. So I'll go back to what I do with my brain dump. I think that will explain how you transfer that to teams. Then you take a brain dump, and then you put it into your structure, into Google what is supposed to be in Google, into Trello what is supposed to be in Trello, on the correct channel, and then you distribute it from there. And at the same time, in the same content, team members in a team can just brain dump whatever is in their brain, and then ask AI.
So obviously, Bjorn, you have some neurodivergence, both from probably before the accident and afterwards. And you obviously have to work with people. And how can people work best with neurodivergent people? How can, if you're a member of a team, for example, or a team leader with different personalities in that team, what are some good ways that you can make sure that you're all working together effectively? What helps you?
What really helps me is close boundaries. I mean, first I would like to say, I mean, sometimes people say, think outside the box.
Yes.
For a neurodivergent person, there is no box. There is no box. That's something really interesting to know. At the same time, we need a box to be able to perform. We need really close boundaries to be able to perform. I mean, tell an artist, go out there and create art. You think the artist will come back with what you expect to see?
No, I guess everyone will interpret it differently.
Exactly. That's why you really need close boundaries, but you need complete freedom, because there are no rules. There are no rules. The only rule, if you, especially if you've seen that everything is possible, that I have seen that everything is possible. You tend to live that everything is possible, and then you test boundaries. I did that also before my accident, but I do test boundaries and I try to go outside the box to find a solution. But I still have to have close boundaries to return to. When I start my egg watch, I look on the brief. Okay, this is what I'm gonna create. And then I start my egg watch, and I go away. I create. I start thinking. I paint. I take plant next to me here, and I start ripping all the leaves out and start examining the leaves and see, oh, I have all these notes going out. That's a really interesting subject. The notes traveling out. It's like how you think. We have all these brain notes in your brain, and then you look out on the sky and say, oh, there's a really interesting line there. I would wonder if I could do something with the contrast between the bright sky above and the dark underground. And oh, that's really interesting. Then the egg watch blinks. Oh, back to focus, back to focus. I look on my script. Okay, I got all these ideas. And then I try to narrow it down and try to fix it in the box. And then I work really focused on trying to get in the focus box. And then I go back to the script, and then I return to the team and I tell the team, this is how I imagine we could perform at our best to solve the issue that we're struggling with. But I have to create in my field. No one tells me what to do.
Yes.
No one.
Yes. So really, it sounds like there is no box. You are giving yourself some kind of box to some sort of, barrier or some sort of, I guess, border to stay within, some boundaries, and then going away and getting rid of that for some time and then coming back to it. And that seems to be the best method. Is that correct in my understanding?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
I would say so.
And have you been doing this kind of work with the Academic Specialist Centre?
I'll tell you briefly what made me come to this collaboration with this academic center. But 10 years ago, I was contacted by the head doctor at the medical ward in Sweden, where I was treated at the end of my hospitalization in Sweden, because he was actually at my first opening after the accident, and a story shot with a Chinese plastic camera Holga, and all shot with double exposures and funky confused stuff by a confused mind. He was at the exhibition, and then we weren't in contact for like almost 10 years. But by some reason, he did follow me on social media. And 10 years after the accident, he contacted me and said, hey, I just got in charge of the neuro rehabilitation ward of this hospital, which happens to be the one of the main big university hospitals in Sweden. And there are going to be all the main surgeons and main guys and politicians and so on are going to be there. And we need some people to hold the opening speech. Would you like to come? Yes. That was a thinking pause because I had to think, hey, am I able to do that?
Yeah.
And then I started to do, hell, I'll do a film instead, because I was just started being interested in doing film. So I did a documentary film about my recovery. Now, X years later, it's not the best from a scenographic point of view. It's not the best story, but it was a really touching and honest story where I interviewed doctors and people in both Sweden and America about how I was and what was the challenges with a guy, meet a guy like me, what was the good things and what was the bad things. And in the end of the film, this doctor asks me, "You consider yourself after the accident? You consider yourself a different person today?" And I had to think, am I a different person today? In a way, yes, I am a different person today. But I'm still the same person because I still have that grit, I still have that passionate power. I'm still convinced that everything is possible until the ADHD backfires. Then everything goes black and it go into everything is really tough. And you have to rise up again because you have a superpower. And you have to remember that. Let's go back to the story. So I did that interview, and that started a really big interest in what happens to the mind when a thing like that happens. I even have a binder with 30 X-rays of my home brain, which I use as a navigation on one of my first home pages. X-rays of my brain, which I got from the hospital. And I've been having those pictures as art pieces I've been performing, and I've always been open with my accident, and at the same time that is a challenge. I mean, hey, I'm sitting here with a pirate patch, and also because I'm so more than 40 years old, I have reading glasses. But that's another story. I was really interested in neurodivergence. I've been writing a lot, and I trained in to become a technical writer. And I felt that that's not really what I want to do. I want to specialize in neurodivergence. I want to help those people understand how to solve challenges in that field. I want to write true copywriting. I want to write honest, pure, raw copy, and that's something I think I can really do. I have my heart and soul in something that could be described as a raw New York grit power based in a late like Tupac late 1980s 90s hip hop era. It's raw, honest, and really at the same time I have a thick accent, but whatever. Anyway, it's the most commonly used word in this dialogue or monologue. Anyway, I started looking for jobs, but I felt like to write a 2,000 description instruction for an engine for a flight magazine machine and put it all on data in the data structure is not that sexy. So I started looking into other fields where I could make a difference. And since I've been communicating a lot and writing a lot about sustainability, and that's something that lies really close to my thing, both ecological sustainability, of course economical, because that's part of reality, and especially social sustainability. That's really close to my heart. Then I got in contact with this Ward Academic Specialist Center, which is specialized in, for example, neurodivergence. So my position at the Academic Specialist Center allows me to both move in between, I mean, running with the tests and meet colleagues and so on, because I don't want to sit at a desk all day long and just write tutorials and help people to solve their challenges. So I get to do that, and I also get to write instructions for people how to manage their lives from a neurodivergent point of view, or how to solve their issues connected with their problematic situation. And that is a place where I can really grow. That in combination with the way I want to communicate deeper, both written and spoken word, gives me a good platform to continue to build from.
So that's quite interesting because in your career, in your life, you've gone from being a photographer to a writer to a speaker to a presenter, And it's all storytelling. So storytelling is obviously very much at the center of your existence and your profession and your personal life. How do you feel that the storytelling in general helps you shift mindsets in business or in personal life?
I think we're in a big change in society where people need to think outside the box, but the way people think outside the box and manage 10,000 things at the same time is not actual. And I think especially in times when we get overloaded, we get so much information all the time. Whatever position you hold in your life, you get overwhelmed with so much information. We really need to take in part that neurodivergence is part of reality. So we need to tell people to think in the box, but do it in your way, which is outside the box. Tell people to come in time on the online meetings. There are no office hours. But you need to be here exactly during these hours. And you need to be available at least during these times. But you need to perform. And performance is not the hours you put in, it's the effect you put in. And how you achieve it is not that interesting.
So it's the output, I guess. It's the output and what you see from the creativity.
Correct, yeah. And it's really important for people to listen to each other, because people do not listen to each other. You have an idea and then you stick with the idea. That is current to all successful people in business. You have an idea and you stick to it. But you need to surround yourself with people that see the wide perspective. Because you can't see both the narrow perspective and the wide perspective. And I think team working is important for success. You need to surround yourself with people that are more successful than yourself and so on. But you need to have people around yourself that contribute with skills that you are not a master of, because everybody are a master of something, and you have to build a net where everybody are an expert on their field.
So Bjorn, you've gone from being a photographer to being a writer to being a speaker. They're all creative mindsets. It's all about storytelling. If you had 60 seconds with the C-suite audience, what would you tell them about what you've learnt in your life, in your career?
Structure is a love letter to chaos. Meaning that you need structure in order to create chaos. And from chaos, everything is possible.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Bjorn, it's been a fantastic conversation today. I've really appreciated you joining us for sharing your story, for sharing what you've learned and all your insights as well. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
A massive thanks to everybody for joining us today on this episode of Muhami Matters, particularly, as I said, to Bjorn, who's has a fantastic life story, has shared his learnings with us and has really opened up. So I think I've really appreciated his unique lens that he's provided on resilience, on creativity, on storytelling, and the way that humans think and communicate with each other. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with your network. For more insights and support, visit muhami.ae or connect with me at CJA Consulting. I'm Chris Adams. Until next time, stay informed, stay empowered. Thank you for joining us on Muhami Matters. If you found today's episode valuable, subscribe and connect with me to stay updated. Join me again soon as we continue to bring you credible insights, practical strategies, and trusted advice to empower your professional journey. I'm Chris Adams. Until next time, stay informed and stay empowered.